If you've been following the financial media lately, you've known that Navy Federal is in the headlines for discriminating against 50% of its black applicants for mortgage loans, in which case they've denied up to 50% of their black applicants. So the question is, should you continue to bank with and save your money with Navy Federal? It's a good question. Why am I focused and emphasizing on saving money? Because banks are only able to lend based on the amount of money they have in deposits. So if you want to protest a financial institution, one of the most effective ways to do so is to pull your deposits away from them. Obviously, it needs to be done at some level of scale in order to really have an impact. But if you personally just don't want to support a certain institution, one of the most effective ways to do that is to pull your deposits away from that institution. That out of the way, there's a couple things we need to cover on this that are very important. As a financial professional, not just from a personal perspective, but from a financial professional's perspective, it is very important to understand who you're doing business with. Very important to try to do your research on who you're doing your banking with, because your money is directly supporting the efforts of that institution. So the era that we've been in for a long time has left us relatively blind to who we're doing business with, only based on our immediate specific needs. So if you care about social issues, then you need to do a lot of homework on who you're banking with and who you're spending your money with, for that matter. That's number one. Number two, the accusations against Navy Federal around their denial for the particular gentleman they covered in that segment were never really brought to light, in the sense that the evidence that Navy Federal actively discriminated against this gentleman was never really clarified in the news segment. They harped on the fact that he had a solid credit score of 700 plus, and that he had a $100,000 down payment towards the mortgage as the reason why he should have been qualified for the loan, and the only other reason that he could have been denied was because he was black. So Navy Federal sent him an adverse action letter, which every single lending institution is required to do by law whenever they deny you for a loan, stating that his debt obligations were too high in ratio or in relevance to his income. If you follow this channel and if you follow financial information at all, you know that that's called DTI, and debt to income. I cover that a lot on this channel. He was self-employed. I cover that a lot on this channel. If you know this channel well, you know that I put a lot of emphasis on my self-employed individuals because of the very reason that's being covered in this video. Navy Federal is being accused of discriminating against this gentleman, and he's self-employed, and the underwriting discovered that he had a bad DTI. The news segment never covered what his DTI was. All they kept saying is that he had a lot of money down and a great credit score. That's extreme levels of ignorance, a lot of financial ignorance. And it's sad because that level of media coverage on an institution that generally otherwise has a solid reputation now has to deal with the backlash for something that may be completely devoid. It's highly possible that this man either wrote off the majority of his income, or he genuinely had a lot of high debt expenses on his credit report relative to his income. It's highly possible. Being self-employed, it is a natural culture to try to write off as much of your expenses annually as you can to minimize your tax bill. So even though this man was touted to make 6 figures a year in what he was doing, it's quite possible he wrote off a significant amount of his income, or he had very significant debt expenses. To give a quick example of that, if he made $144,000 a year, that's $12,000 a month. If he had $7,000 or $8,000 in monthly expenses shown on his credit report for whatever reason, that's a bad DTI. It's quite possible that it was outside of the natural range of the lending product he was applying for. Every mortgage, most mortgages, if not every mortgage, has a DTI requirement. And in most cases, if it's a conventional loan especially, you're at or below 45%, maybe 50% on your DTI. If we stick to the $12,000 a month in gross income that he showed on his tax returns, by the way, that means that he could not have had more than $6,000 in monthly expenses reported on his credit report at max, maybe $5,000 and some change. That's the next topic. The next important thing I want to point out We as a people, whether that be black, and to be honest, as Americans as a whole, because our media is garbage, to be honest. Our mainstream media is really, really garbage. And the only way that they're able to survive and get clicks and views and continue to support their business model is usually through gaslighting. And it's very important for us to understand that we should not be further marginalizing ourselves from the financial system by allowing some news segment to trigger us into disturbing our relationship with a solid financial institution. Now, am I trying to say that these banks and institutions don't have, any systemic racism or prejudice or anything going on? Of course not. It's going to take time to roll back generations, years, decades of racial inequities in our system. That's not going to happen overnight. It's not. It's literally only been 30, 40 years or so that these laws, and even less in some cases, have been on the books against discrimination. It's going to take time to bake that out of the system. It just is what it is. All we can do as people is do our best to meet the actual requirements of these institutions and to do our best financially to be in the best position possible. We cannot allow the media to be more divisive, not only with us amongst each other, but us against financial institutions that we need to be doing business with. If you want to stand for social equity and still continue to function financially in this system, you have to do more homework on who you're doing business with. You have to be more engaged. Navy Federal is a credit union. That means you have a part ownership in that institution if you're banking with them. Any credit union. That means you have the ability to go to these different meetings, these board meetings, these member meetings. You have the right to vote. You have the right to be engaged in these institutions. The data that this news segment CNN pulled to even start these accusations against Navy Federal are public record. You can go to the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and these different entities and gather the data on your institutions you're banking with and how many different marginalized groups they're lending to and banking with. You can pull this data. It's not private. It's public record. If you care about these issues, you need to care about them. You can't let the media dictate when you care about these issues. Because to be honest, it sounds like a bunch of bullshit. This particular situation sounds like a bunch of BS. The financial disparity in the system is really with us as black people. We have disproportionately low credit scores. We have disproportionately bad financials all the way around. Now, if you want to go into the depth of where that history comes from, that's a different conversation. But blaming Navy Federal, who most likely has a damn near automated underwriting system, and underwriters who never get to see their applicants, making these decisions, going off the numbers, and also makes money from the lending, by the way, to decide or to, draw these conclusions, it's just asinine. I don't know any other way to say it. It's just asinine. The likelihood is that this gentleman's DTI probably was bad. It is what it is. If you thumb through all of the files of the black applicants denied, I can assure you, I am confident, not because I'm bought into the system or anything like that, just from common damn sense in the financial world and being in the banking system. Most likely these people did not qualify legitimately. It's just facts. If you want to go to the systemic racism that was built into the system that has messed up and passed down generational inequities when it comes to credit, when it comes to financials, that's a different conversation. But to blame an institution today, especially Navy Federal, who's largely probably automating its underwriting in a lot of different ways, is crazy, especially when you cover a news segment on it and don't even draw the evidence in the news segment. They never covered his DTI. All they kept talking about was his income, his credit, and his down payment. You can get denied for a conventional or a government-backed loan, even with all three of those boxes checked. I cover that information on this channel all the time. The short end of the story, because I don't want this video to be too much longer. If you're gonna care about social inequity, financial, socioeconomic issues and social inequity, do it on your own time. Don't let some news segment be the one to dictate when you care about these things. That's number one. Number two, it is literally public record. The majority of the financial reputation that these banks hold, their social reputations, are public record. Do your own research. Other than that, don't be marginalized from the financial system any further. We don't have that luxury. If you want to stick to the black topic, we don't have that luxury to decide when to let the news gaslight us to pull ourselves away from financial institutions when we're literally only 1 to 2 generations into having access to these institutions. We are some of the first couple generations that even have complete, full access to these institutions. And we're going to allow the news to distract us and mislead us and outright lie to us into pulling our relationships away from these institutions and financially marginalizing ourselves, because it's not like there's a ton of black banks for us to go do our business with. So I just wanted to put this on you guys' mind. Hopefully it reaches a decent amount of you. Honestly, this is for Americans as a whole, but if you want to stick to the black topic, that's fine. We don't have that to do. We got to stop. The media is the biggest problem. The media is the biggest problem, because I can assure you there's a lot of other issues that need to be covered that they're not going to cover because it's not going to get enough views. It doesn't serve their business model. This was convenient. That's my opinion. That's my 2 cents. This was convenient. If you bank with Navy Federal, please don't be foolish enough to just pull your money out or cancel that relationship over some gaslit, convenient social equity issue at the moment. Do your homework, do your research, go down to your local credit union and talk to somebody. When you get these letters in the mail and these emails that y'all are constantly ignoring, that's asking you to vote, asking you to come to the meeting, and asking you to be a part of the decisions made by these credit unions and institutions, you need to get engaged with that. If not, don't let the news be the one to gaslight you and puppet you on a string, puppet master you on a string when to start giving some financial institution backlash. To all my pioneers, welcome back. To my new viewers, welcome in. If you want to learn more about myself and the channel, start in the description section and work your way to the about section on the channel. Comment down below and let me know what your relationship with Navy Federal is. Let me know about your perspective on financial institutions and social equity. Let me know about your perspective on us as black people, Afro-descended people in America, and our financial inequities, and where we need to, how we need to approach that, how we need to start better resolving that problem faster. And let me know how you feel about CNN gaslighting this issue in the first place. Comment all that down below. Other than that, I want y'all to stay focused, stay in motion. I'll see y'all soon.
This is JP from Blueprint for Prosperity Network, a channel dedicated to helping you increase your net worth through relationship banking, maximizing your borrowing capacity, the proper use of life insurance, and the ownership of real estate. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm uploading content on a daily basis to help you customize your blueprint for prosperity.